Today we're going to talk about the misapplication of the Watson rule and how it has affected two very high profile cases, specifically under former DA George Gascon, sending a message to a certain demographic. What transpired under George Gascon from the first day that he was sworn in on December 7th, 2020, he basically decided to rewrite the law to suit his own political purposes. For those of you who don't know, George Gascon was financially funded by George Soros. Radical, left-wing, progressive, supporting the pro-criminal agenda. George Gascon came into office, and his first order of business was to remove enhancements so that violent criminals could get away with spending little to no time behind bars. There were no consequences, basically, for these criminals.
What's that motherfucker's name to let everybody out?
Oh, the DA fool. What's his name?
Charlie Gascon. Shout out Gascon and shit, dog. Gascon letting all real motherfuckers out that don't deserve to be in there, dog. You know what I'm saying? People, hey, vote for Gascon, dog. Like, shout out to people that are doing it for my people.
Within 27 days, he was served with a lawsuit by the union that represents the Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorneys, who sued their boss because he removed their ability to prosecute cases to the highest level of the law. So basically, George Gascon came into office and said, I'm going to interpret the law the way I want to interpret the law. Nowhere is that more evident than the misapplication of the Watson rule. And I'm going to explain the Watson rule so you understand it. The Watson rule applies to defendants that have had previous DUIs and or some type of reckless behavior that required a Watson advisement. So basically, if the pattern of behavior continued, the Watson rule is going to be applied in that case. Now, here's where the misapplication of the law initially started under Gascon, at least that we know of in terms of high-profile cases. The same day that he was served with a lawsuit by his deputy district attorneys and was not allowing his district attorneys to apply the law as it should be, that very same day, December 30th, the district attorney's office charged Rebecca Grossman with 2 counts of murder. Now, since Grossman was not charged with a DUI, they needed to come up with something else. So what they did was they manufactured a fleeing charge. That fleeing charge is not only not applicable by the law, but there is also case law. People versus Scheer, 1998. Maps out what fleeing truly is. Nothing that Grossman did that night falls under a fleeing charge. Nothing. They completely ignored case law, like it didn't even happen, and just moved forward with the fleeing. Grossman did not flee the scene. The second her airbags went off, the Mercedes emergency operation system kicked in. An operator got on the line with her and told her exactly what to do, which was pull over, wait for law enforcement. That's exactly what she did. She never left the scene. She was there. There is no amount of distance that you can travel that would indicate that she was fleeing other than completely leaving the scene and not coming back. And People versus Scheer is very clear about that. However, George Gascon used this opportunity to misapply the Watson rule because he was already under scrutiny all over the news, getting sued by his own district attorneys for removing enhancements, not allowing them to do their jobs and prosecute criminals. And here he's doing the complete opposite, misapplying the law. Rebecca Grossman was the opposite of a violent criminal. She is a philanthropist. She is a white woman from an affluent area. Frasier Bohm, young man in his 20s, driving on PCH, very treacherous stretch of PCH that is famous for accidents. Actually, all over PCH is famous for accidents. I lived in Malibu for over 20 years. So trust me, I know. And it's treacherous no matter where it is. However, there is a stretch down near Big Rock Drive that is particularly dangerous. and people speed there all the time. On October 17th, 2023, the unimaginable happened. Fraser Bohm lost control of his car, slammed into parked cars that crushed 4 young Pepperdine students. 4 beautiful young women lost their lives that night as a result of this chain reaction crash. George Gascon, district attorney, under fire. Crime is out of control. People are pissed off. They want this man gone. And so here he is, yet another opportunity for him to show he is tough on crime. Okay, this is a tragic accident all over the news, as you can imagine. Very high profile case. He's going to use it to his advantage. Within days, Fraser Bohm was charged with murder. 4 counts of murder. They used the Watson rule again. Now, this Watson rule was applied because George Gascon said he was going 104 miles an hour, which has yet to be proven, and he had reckless disregard for life. Well, there are some circumstances that have not been revealed to the public yet, and have not really been thoroughly investigated in that crash. But that didn't really matter to George Gascon. He saw a perfect opportunity to throw his weight around and say, I'm going to charge to the highest level of the law. Again, Watson rule doesn't apply because Fraser Bohm does not have any prior DUIs, nor does he have any history of speeding.
My client is facing 4 life terms, back to back to back to back, for an accident. This case is wildly overcharged. It was a political backlash filing. That's all it was. And my hope is Nathan Hochman is a very, very different DA, a very solid DA. My hope is that the only reason that this is continuing under his watch is more apathy than in anything malicious. I don't believe he's malicious at all about this particular prosecution.
Can he throw it out if he wants to?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And I expect to have a conversation with him and his staff about exactly that, righting the ship. Let's prosecute this case as it should be. I will defend this case all day long with the right charges, all day long. If it was charged as a vehicular manslaughter, I could defend that all day long because I don't believe that Fraser did anything criminal.
We're looking at a misapplication of the law. That leads us to Summer Wheaton. July 4th, goes to the Nobu White Party. The year before, that White Party caused so many problems on PCH, it was a public safety hazard. And that is why the city of Malibu didn't want to give them a permit. They went ahead, they had it anyway. And 20 minutes after the party concluded, Summer Wheaton crossed the median dividers, crashed head-on into an Uber driver who was driving a 17-year-old passenger. And that Uber driver, Martin Okeke, 44 years old, had a wife and a young daughter, and he was killed instantly. Now, there were no extenuating circumstances in terms of people involved or other things involved in the crash. It was cut and dry. It was a DUI head-on collision that resulted in a fatality. It took 7 months to charge this woman. I found out almost immediately from my sources at the sheriff's department that Summer Wheaton was a social media influencer. She was attending the party, and then my team jumped all over it, found photos of her drinking at the party, and we're talking like big drinks, you could tell. It wasn't like speculative. You knew where she was, what she was doing, what the circumstances were, and she was taken to the hospital. I believe that's where her blood was drawn, and she was in fact charged with a DUI. Now, it took 7 months for them to charge her, and her official charges are manslaughter and DUI. This is where the Watson rule would actually apply because Summer Wheaton has a misdemeanor for possession. I believe it was before she turned 21. Shortly after the crash, I was sent a video that Summer Wheaton posted on social media of her very tipsy, and she says, I'm tipsy in the video, acknowledges that she clearly had been drinking. She posted the video because she was mocking. Clearly, she had disregard for life, laughing and mocking the fact that this law enforcement officer was unaware of her drunk friends driving by.
Okay, I'm tipsy right now, but she's been sitting here for the last 10 minutes of me chilling here, and I know at least 20 of my friends have driven past her drunk, but she's over here boo loving on the phone. Girl, talk your shit to your man or your girl, whatever, with the shortcut. She either likes women or black men, period.
Complete disregard for human life, because you can't tell me that she did not know driving drunk kills people. And this is also somebody with a history. So this fits exactly under the Watson rule. And yet George Gascon's office, who actually started the case, Wheaton was only charged with manslaughter versus murder. This fit the Watson rule to the letter of the law. It remains to be seen how the charging will continue under the new DA's office with Nathan Hochman at the helm. If you don't think racism in reverse exists, take a look at those three cases. White woman from a affluent area, white young man from an affluent area, both were charged with the Watson rule when the Watson rule did not apply legally to either one of their cases. There is case law, there is a legal precedent that has been set, none of which fit those cases. Summer Wheaton, Watson rule, black woman from an affluent family, charged with manslaughter. The Watson rule applied to the letter of the law in her case, but yet she only got manslaughter. Originally, the Watson rule was to ensure fairness, and it was also to hold those accountable who had a history of reckless behavior. And under George Gascon, it was a political utility tool. It was invoked when useful, and it was ignored when it was convenient, and it was misapplied when the optics demanded a villain. And these three cases prove justice was not the priority. The narrative was. I'm Cece Woods. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you soon.